Let's bring in Aaron David Miller, who's senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. He's a former State Department analyst and negotiator. So suddenly Syria is a topic and a big one of conversation again. What are we to make of these latest developments, Aaron?
You know, I mean, not to trivialize, Connell, civil war violence, particularly when it's when you're engaging one brutal authoritarian with Islamist organizations, which are not Democrats. You know, nothing in America lasts more than 15 minutes, and I'm still not persuaded that what happens in Syria won't stay in Syria. That was not true of 2011 when the outbreak of the civil war occurred. You had the Islamic State active. You had mass migration into Europe, which is still with us today. And you had a proto-terror state, basically, under the Islamic State, and al-Qaeda operating in both Iraq and Syria. I'm just not sure this time how threatening this is going to be to the stability of the Assad regime. They're clearly and have not been in control of Syria since the civil war started. And it's tough to see how this is going to impact, for example, what's happening in Lebanon. Clearly, Hezbollah is a lot weaker, Iran's a lot weaker. The Russians are distracted and may not be able to provide the support they did in 2015, which essentially saved the Assad regime. It's worth keeping an eye on.
Right.
Just not sure where the trend lines are going.
Yeah, I was thinking about it in two. You brought up Lebanon, and you're right. I don't know how it impacts that, but I was thinking of the Russians with everything that's going on in. Certainly, obviously in Ukraine, but then even just, we showed the video last hour in Georgia, all the protests there, you know, right on their border, and now this, and how kind of all of it plays together in terms of, to use your term, distraction for Russia. Is it a big one?
Well, Georgia actually may be trending Russia's way if the so-called Dream Party, or whatever the name is, essentially putting on membership status in the EU on hold. It's clearly going to play to Putin's favor. You know, the Russian-Assad alliance is a very, very important and strong one. And I think the Russians will go to some length to ensure that the regime doesn't fall. I'm not sure the regime is in danger of falling, but clearly seizing Aleppo, second biggest city, they're making additional gains. Syrian economy is very vulnerable. Syrian military, they've been considerable mass defections. I mean, this could it could mushroom and snowball something much greater that could affect matters in Damascus, but that's yet to be proven.
All right, two-part question then related to Israel and the Middle East. First of all, the ceasefire in Lebanon and what you expect there. Second, on Gaza, this headline from the New York Times: Israel building bases in central Gaza, a sign it may be there to stay. They talk about how in recent months soldiers have demolished more than 600 buildings to create a buffer area and expanded network of bases. So Gaza and Lebanon, your view on both?
Look, if you look at the commercially available overhead, there's no doubt that the Israeli Defense Forces are clearing all sorts of buildings and building berms and infrastructure and preparing for a long stay, partly because there is no security architecture anticipated, no boots on the ground, no Security Council mandated force, no Palestinian Authority, partly due, I would argue, to Mr. Netanyahu's refusal to engage on day after planning. So, no, Gaza's going to be a mess, Connell, for months, if not longer. And for the hostages, their families, and for the long-suffering Palestinians of Gaza, it's going to be a very cold and bitter winter.
Aaron, thank you as always. Aaron David Miller with us today while we're talking. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.